Hello, fifth graders, and welcome to your math lesson for today. For today, you will need your 5B textbook, your 5B workbook. You may want your math resource binder as a reference because we're going to be talking about some things that we took notes on earlier, and then paper and pencil. So go ahead and go get those things and then come on back and we're going to get into it. All right, so we're continuing with this review about filling in this chart. This is a skill you're going to be applying today. So I want to make sure that you're remembering what we were working on in earlier lessons about expressing fractions as decimals and then percentages. And then we're going to be doing some rounding. So go ahead and pause, give these a try, come on back and see how you did. So remember, when we're working with fractions to decimals to percents, right, we want to remember that fractions are division. We've actually done this one a lot of times. I'm realizing now as I'm going through this, but we're going to, of course, turn this into a decimal and stack those decimal points. 5 does not go into 4. It goes into 48 times with no remainder. So that means our decimal version of 4/5 is 8/10. 1, 2. We got to add that 0. So what is our percent? 80%. Rounding to the nearest tenth. Remember, we're going to put a box around the number that we're rounding to and underline the digit to its right. Everything to the left stays the same, including where the decimal point is placed. Now we look. 7, 5 or more, add 1 more. Everything after that becomes a 0, but remember those zeros are unnecessary, so we don't want to include them. So our answer here would be 801 and 6/10. So I've been saying it and I'll say it again. If you're having a tough time with these warm-ups, it's a great idea to come to office hours. These are very much the kinds of questions that you're going to see on quizzes or tests. So it'll be helpful for you to be able to get some extra practice or to talk it through with an adult. I feel like I'm in the dark, so hang on for one moment. I don't know if that's any better, but okay. So for today, we're going to be working with pie charts, specifically as it relates to percentages. And so things to remember, these are the things that are in your notes that we took about pie charts. Things to remember that percentages, when we're talking about a pie chart, the whole pie chart needs to add up to 100%, right? All of the pie chart is 100% of the pie chart. In addition, straight lines, just like it's half of the pie chart, it's 50%, right? 50% and 1/2 are equivalent. And so we're looking at 50% of the pie chart. And then the right angles are going to be 25%. And again, 1/4, 25%. Those are equivalent, okay? So those are the details that we want to make sure that we're remembering for today. All right. With that. Oh yeah, we're going to do a little bit of review about finding the percent of a whole, and then we'll get into our textbook. So it's kind of like what we were working on yesterday as we did a bit of review about, or yeah, I guess it was review. With percentage, it won't be review necessarily, but it should be pretty speedy. Percent of a whole. So let's say we're trying to find, I don't know, 42% of 320. So when we're doing percent of a whole, you just want to, first of all, express your percent as a decimal, and then multiply. And the multiplying part, once we're dealing with a decimal, that should remind us of what we just worked on with our decimals unit. So if we think about how, when we were going from decimals to percentages, right, we'd say 1, 2. It's just the opposite for percentages to decimals. We go the other direction, 1, 2, okay? Or 43% equals 1, 2, 43/100ths, okay? Or 89%, 1, 2, 89/100ths. Or 17%, 1, 2, 17/100ths, okay? So it should be pretty The one new step is the moving the decimal point 2 to the left. Beyond that, that should be something we've already done, right? So we turn our percent into a decimal. Of course, in math means multiplication. And 320 is going to stay the same. Remember, when we're setting up decimal multiplication, we want to put the longer number on top, meaning the one that has the more digits on top. Okay, so for either of these, you could have gone either way. And we just do our multiplication, right? 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6. We add a 0 to hold our place. 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. Now we add, and then we have to look. 1, 2 decimal places in our problem. 1, 2 decimal places in our answer. And yes, that 0 needs to be included, right? That is one of the decimal places. And if you don't include that, you're going to get the wrong answer. So what that means is 42% of 320, I'll write this down here. 42% of 320 equals 144 and 4/10, okay? So not as complicated as it might seem. Let's try another one. %17 of 280. So step one is to express your percent as a decimal. Also, this is not a bad idea to write these in your notes. Let's say I'm finding percent of a quantity. So to add these to your notes would not be a bad idea. Okay, so remember, 17% we're going to express as a decimal. So 1, 2. Now we have 17 hundredths times 280. And now we just multiply. So 0 times 7 is 0. 7 times 8, 56, because 5, 6, 7, 8. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 5 is 19. And now we put a 0 there because we're not multiplying by, I mean, this is a little trickier with decimals, but we need to show we're multiplying by tenths here. Okay, now 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. And then we add. But now we have to look back at our problem. I see 2 decimal places in my problem, so 2 decimal places in my answer. So 17% of 280 equals 47 and 6/10. I'm going to ask you to try 2 of them. We'll do one at a time, though. So let's say I'm going to have you do, I don't know, 24% of 1,200. So go ahead and pause, give it a try, and then come on back and see how you did. So remember step 1, 1, 2, we move that decimal point over 2 spaces to the left. Of is the same as multiplication, and then 1,200 stays the same. Remember, when we're multiplying, we want to put the longer number on top, so 1,200 is longer. And now we multiply. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. And then we add a 0 to hold our place. And then again, 2 times 0, 2 times 0, 2 times 2, 2 times 1. And we add 0, 0, 8, 8, 2. Last step, of course, we want to look at our decimal places. There's 2 in the problem, so we need 2 in our answer. So 24% of 1,200 is 288. I'm going to have you try another one. Let's say 37% of 2,500. So again, you're going to pause, give it a try, come on back and see how you did. So 1, 2 to the left, we get 37 hundredths times 2,500. And we do the multiplication. 0, 0, 35 and carry the 3. 14 plus 3 is 17. We add a 0 to hold our place, and then we multiply. 0, 0, 15, carry that 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. and we add. And then we check decimal places. We should have 2 decimal places in our answer. So 37% of 2,500 is 925. Okay, so we're definitely going to be including problems like this in our pie charts. Okay, so it's good to make sure that we know how to do percent of a whole. With that, we're going to open up in our textbooks to page 134. I'm going to make, so 134 is what we're going to work through today, and actually a little bit in our workbook too. All right. So observationally, I'm looking at this problem, and if I'm making predictions, which you know that when it comes to pie charts, I'm kind of making some predictions. I don't see any straight lines here. I don't see any right angles. I do see 4 pieces of a pie chart, and I know 3 of them. I'm predicting that I'm probably going to be asked what percent of students chose basketball, and I need to remember, of course, if I know 3 but not 1 more, the sum of all of these needs to be what? 100%. Yeah, right. Okay. So a group of 200 students were asked to name their favorite sport. The pie chart represents their choices. So 30% chose baseball, 35% chose swimming, and 20% chose track and field. What was the most popular sport? So this is actually helpful that we have these two because they look pretty close. These two we can see are not the biggest pieces. These look close, but we have the values. So what's the most popular sport? Swimming is the most popular sport. Woo! Bonus points for me. My prediction came true. Woohoo. Okay, what percent of students chose basketball? So remember, the sum of all of these needs to be 100. So we know 3 of them. So 35, 30, and 20. So we're going to add all, you can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to add all 3 of these together to find a total, right? So 5 plus 0 is 5. 3 plus 3 plus 2 is 8. So that means the known percentages here add up to 85%. So now we have to figure out 85 plus what equals 100, knowing, of course, that all of the pie pieces together are 100%. So you might know this just from kind of looking at it, or maybe you do subtraction just to really be sure, right, to find how many more we need. So 10 minus 5 is 5, and 9 minus 8 is 1. So 15. So what percent is basketball? 15%. And we know that because we want all of these to add up to 100%. So if you got to this step and thought, I don't know if I did that right, you could add all 4 and see, did I get 100%? Now, remember that lesson, mini lesson we did at the beginning to find the percent of a whole? We're going to apply it right now. How many students chose baseball? So how many? We know that 30%, which is not the question. The question is not what percent, it's how many students. So we have 30% of the students chose baseball. How many students? 200. 30% of the students chose baseball. So we're going to do 30% of 200. You know the routine. We did this practice, right? 1, 2. So that means that we're going to find 30 hundredths, or it's actually kind of nice to just say 3/10. It saves us a little bit of work. 3/10 of 200. So we multiply. Now, if you did keep it at 30 hundredths, it's fine. You just have to keep track of your place value. You're not going to get the wrong answer. This is just going to be simpler. So we say 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 2 is 6. I see 1 decimal point in my problem, so I need 1 in my answer. So how many students chose baseball? 60. 60 students chose baseball. What fraction of the students chose swimming? What fraction of the students chose swimming? So we know 35% of the students chose swimming. So this might seem tricky, but I assure you it's not. Remember when I first started talking to you about percent, I told you that percent means out of 100, right? That's what percent means. So anytime you're turning a percentage into a fraction, remember, you're just going to write 35 out of 100. Now you ask yourself the question that you always ask yourself with fractions. Is it proper? Sure is. Can it be simplified? Yeah, this can be simplified. These are both divisible by 5. So 35 divided by 5 is 7. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So we end up with 7/20 as our correct answer. Not so bad. I actually really, I said this already in a previous lesson, I really like pie charts. I think that they're very logical. I like the math that we do. I like kind of the predictions. So it is a joy of mine. Maybe, I'm hoping you guys are enjoying it, but I also recognize that not everyone likes what I like. Okay, let's try number 6. Mrs. Gray spent some money on clothes. The pie chart shows how the money was spent. Okay, so generally speaking, when I look at a pie chart and I see 4 pieces and only 2 known percentages, I immediately think there must be some other clue in here. Because if it were just 2 percentages and 4 pie charts, there's not enough information. So, I want to look and think about the other things I know. I know about total percentages of pie charts, I know about straight lines, and I know about right angles. Do I see any of those in there? Yeah, there's this straight line here, right? So what this straight line tells me is that everything on this side adds up to 50%. And everything on this side adds up to 50%. So we actually can figure out the percentage of the shirts and of the pants by knowing that this half is 50% and that half is 50%. Okay? Okay, so what I personally don't love this question being first. I would rather you do B and then C first. So let's just do that. So I get to call the shots, right? Okay, so what percent was spent on shirts? Remember what I just said. This straight line tells us that these two things are going to add up to 50%. So skirts are 15% plus some percent of shirts. It's going to add up to what percent if we see that straight line? 50%. Good. So now to find our answer, maybe you do the calculation in your head. Maybe you do the subtraction. Either way is great. When we subtract, we should get 35. So what percent of money was spent on shirts? 35%. C, I'm actually going to have you pause and try C. It's the same process. We're using the same logic, right? We see a straight line tells us that this is half. So go ahead and find the answer to C. Maybe you did this one in your head, but we know that 20% for dresses plus some amount for pants is going to equal 50%. So 20 plus what is 50? 30%. Okay, now I feel more confident about going back and answering question A, which is what did you spend the most, or what did Mrs. Gray spend the most money on? So we have 15, 35, 20, and 30. Which one is the greatest? Yeah, our answer to A is going to be shirts. She spent the greatest amount of money on shirts. 5th graders, we're actually going to take a little look in your workbooks together. You're going to do some with me and some on your own. So I'm going to ask you to open up to page 134 in your workbooks. Not 134. What am I thinking? 100. Oh boy. 130 and 131 is what we're going to take a look at together in your workbook. So go ahead and open that up. Okay, so we're looking at this pie chart where we're told the total amount. It's given to us right here, right? Nicole spent $1,000 on 4 electrical, excuse me. So this bottom question here is asking us, what is the percent of money she spent on each item? And you're going to fill it in the pie chart below. Okay, so you'll be writing percentages in here. So this is really about making fractions and then turning those fractions into percentages. Okay, so I know I'm going to start writing some things down. That the fan was $100. The TV was $400. The oven was $350. And the vacuum cleaner was $150. And so I have it all written down. We're going to be creating fractions here. Remember what I said is that the total is 1,000. So we're going to look at 100 over 1,000. Sorry. 400 over 1,000. 350 over 1,000. And 150 over 1,000. Now, you might be looking at it and thinking, that seems hard. But I assure you, I'm going to remind you of two things. I'll do one at a time. First thing I want to remind you of is that when you see common zeros, you can cross them out, right? If you have a 0 here and a 0 here, you can cross 1 0 out in each. Also, I want you to remember that percent equals out of 100. So if we can get all of these to be out of 100, it'll be a really quick conversion then into percentage. So we could cross out 2 zeros from each, but I don't want to do that. I want to get this, in each case, I want to see if I can get each of these to be out of 100, right? So if I cross out 1 0 from each of these, then I get out of 100. So if I'm going to cross 1 from the denominators, I need to do 1 from the numerators, right? And remember, we can do that. It's equivalent to just dividing by 10 over 10. Now it makes it really easy. The fan is 10 out of 100, or 10%. The TV is 40 out of 100, or 40%. The oven is 35 out of 100, or 35%. Vacuum, what do you think? Yeah, 15%. 15 out of 100 is 15%. So you can go ahead and fill all of those percentages in down here. All right, as we move to the next page, fifth graders, I'm going to have to do a little bit of like magic because I've written on these pages in the past. I tried to erase them, which you can't really tell on here, the writing as much, but over here there's going to be a lot more. It's going to be obvious where my writing is. So I'm going to try to be super sneaky. It might be failed, but to keep you guys from seeing the work so that we can work together. Okay, so with that, that's a total fail. I'm going to start using Post-it notes so that any temptation there is removed. All right. So, a sports shop sold 80 balls on a certain day. The pie chart represents the quantity of each type of ball that was sold. So we're seeing a pie chart, we're seeing percentages. Again, I'm seeing 2 given percentages and 2 not, which always should cue to you. I need to be thinking about some clues that might be there. So remember, I see that right angle, and that right angle tells me that basketballs are 25%, right? Right angles means 25%. Okay, first one should be pretty speedy for you. What percentage of the balls sold were baseballs? 15%. Go ahead and fill that in. What percentage of the balls sold were basketballs? My predicting paid off. What percent? 25%. Good, right? We see that right angle, that means 25%. What percentage of the balls sold were footballs? So this one gets a little bit harder, but we need to remember what about this entire pie chart? Yep, it adds up to 100%. And we have 3 known and 1 unknown, which is just what we want. So as we're looking at C, let's go ahead and add our known. We have these 3 known. I can barely see that. Okay. We add our known. 5 plus 5 is 10. And then we add the remainder. to get 60. So our known adds up to 60. So we say 60 plus what equals 100? 60 plus 40, which means what percent were footballs? 40% were footballs. Great. We're going to see a little work I did last year. Okay. Now the question is, how many baseballs were sold? How many? So now we have to remember what we learned at the top here, which is that there are 80 total, and we have a percentage. So how are we going to do this? We're going to find 15% of 80. So go ahead, give that a try. Come on back and see how you did. So of course we move that decimal 1, 2 to the left, and then we multiply by our quantity. So that 0 there is kind of nice because we can just put it there to hold our place. And now we multiply our 8. 8 times 5 is 40, carry that 1. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. I see 1, 2, 1, 2. 12 baseballs were sold. Question E, fifth graders, is asking how many volleyballs were sold. So it's the same process, although for volleyballs we have 20%. I hope you're filling this in on your workbooks. Again, I'm keeping this covered because I don't want you to see work that I've done in the past. So again, 1, 2. So now we're multiplying 80 by 2/10. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 8 is 16. We add our decimal point to get 16. So fifth graders, you should have filled in now page 130 in your workbooks and 131 in your workbooks. I know we're doing kind of a little bit of a longer lesson, but the practice that you're putting in this lesson is going to help with doing your homework, okay? So practice work. So again, this is checkpoint 1. If you're feeling like, come see me, come see Mr. Tom, hey, we're ready for you. Your practice work is going to be the next 2 pages in your workbook. You're going to work on pages 132 and 133 in your workbook. I have the key included. So once you're done with those practice pages, use the key to check your work. And see how you did, okay? If you're unable to make corrections, of course, come see us. That's your second checkpoint. Your homework is an attachment to this assignment. So once you're done with your practice work, go ahead and start working on that homework and then submit a picture of both sides. Remember, I want to see your work in there, right? So if you're not showing your work, I'm going to return and ask for it. So better to just do it right up front to have that work shown for me, okay? Good luck, fifth graders. A lot we did today, but hopefully it's clicking for you, okay? Goodbye.